Good afternoon, everyone. We're here for the renewed hearing on the site assignment application by EWS to the Board of Health. We're going from 3 till 6:45 or so. The ZBA needs this room at 7, as you may recall. We're going to break at 5. There's a flag raising ceremony. In addition, Mr. Kaplan has to leave at 5, but he will watch the tape and certify appropriately so he can catch up and still be in on the vote. We were going to do the recross examination of Mr. Woodland by Mr. Durning. We'll finish up Mr. Woodland and then move on to Mr. Hazavardian.
Thank you very much, Art. Mr. Woodland, Peter Durning of Veraldana LLC as counsel for the Board of Health. During the redirect, Attorney Favaza asked you if you would confirm your conclusion regarding the impact to public safety based on your traffic study. But isn't it true that Tetra Tech's traffic impact study did not specifically include a study of the underpass on Magnolia Avenue?
That's correct.
Is it accurate that your knowledge of the Magnolia Avenue underpass is only based on your personal observations and not on any technical analysis?
That's not correct.
Could you repeat that, please?
That is not correct.
What would be correct?
Oh, so my assessment is based on a review of accident history. We also pulled some plan records for the intersection to kind of round out our understanding of that underpass.
And was that information in the traffic impact access study?
It was not.
Where does that information appear?
I spoke to it in my testimony the last time I was on. There's no part or exhibit that I'm going to point to for that, other than the accident data was referenced in the Weston and Sampson latest exhibit.
During redirect, Attorney Favaza asked how many trucks would pass northbound and southbound on the traffic path at peak hours in the morning and evening. Do you recall that testimony? Do you recall your answer?
Yes, well, I don't recall my answer. I know how many new trips are being added. That would be 7 northbound, 7 southbound. The existing volumes are listed in the traffic study. I don't recall the numbers off the top of my head.
Do you perform any modeling or computer analysis to understand what the conditions would be if a roll-off container traveling northbound away from the facility encountered a roll-off container traveling southbound toward the facility and happened to enter the underpass at Magnolia Avenue at the same time?
It's been my observation that that doesn't occur.
My question was, did you or Tetra Tech perform any modeling or computer analysis to understand that situation?
No, we did not.
Did you do any modeling or computer analysis to understand what the conditions would be if 2 tractor trailers met traveling in the opposite direction?
We didn't do any specific analysis on that.
Thank you. All right, that's done.
Okay. Mr. Woodland, I think you're concluded, at least for today.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Unless you'd like to.
Does anybody else want?
What's that?
The other party have recall?
Sorry, I didn't understand anybody else to have recross. Does anybody else have? Recross is based only on the redirect, not his original direct examination. Okay, I'm sorry. Could you?
Can somebody hand Judy the mic, please?
Yeah.
Okay. With regards to the flooding that has been talked about that happens under the bridge, is it possible that either of these 18-wheelers or a dumpster truck is able to pass through when it is in its worst capacity of being flooded out? And if it were not, if your answer would be it's not, then what would happen to the truck coming down or the truck entering?
I'm not familiar with the flooding history or how high the flooding occurs at that location. I know sometimes it can get wet. It's kind of in a low spot, but I have no information regarding how high that water might be. Is it a puddle at the bottom of the bridge? Is it several feet of water? I don't have any information.
Okay, so your testimony then is that you are not aware of what the conditions are when that bridge or that road underneath the railroad bridge floods
Rose,
up.
this
Is that right?
flooding was raised in his redirect. I let you ask the first question, but we're not going to go down that line any further. This is only based on what he testified on his redirect, which was very limited. Okay. Anyone else have recross? Okay. I assume there's no redirect, which is rare. Okay. Now, Mr. Woodland, you're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to Mr. Hazarvardian. Testifying for the interveners, represented by Mr. Nestor. He has already been sworn in. Is Mr. Ostler here yet? Okay. You, I don't think have been sworn in, right? Because you weren't here when I
I think-
swore all.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I don't want to forget. So can I just
Yep.
swear you in right now? Would you mind standing up? And raise your dominant hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth when you testify? Thank you. Okay. That part of the screen showing on it makes it just hard to see. Yeah, that's good. That's good for me anyway. Everybody else can see.
Good morning, Mr. Haspardian, or good afternoon. For the record, can you give your name and business address?
Tim Eric Hazvardian, TEP LLC, 93 Star Road, Suite 201, Salem, New Hampshire.
And can you briefly describe your educational background?
I have a bachelor's, master's, and doctor of philosophy degrees in civil/transportation engineering from University of Kansas and University of Massachusetts Amherst.
And do you have any credentials?
I'm a licensed professional engineer and a certified professional traffic operations engineer.
And do you have any professional affiliations?
Mr. Nestor, sorry to interrupt. I think his CV was attached to the pre-filed direct testimony, correct?
That's correct.
So the CV is in evidence. Nobody's questioning his qualifications as a witness. So unless there's something particular in his background you want to elicit, he's qualified as an expert. We can just move on.
Have you ever consulted for local and state departments of transportation?
Primarily for municipal planning authorities, planning and zoning authorities, transportation review. And I've done numerous traffic studies that have been reviewed by state DOTs in multiple states, and some design work in multiple states.
And can you briefly describe how you got involved in this case?
I was contacted by Vito Ferraro.
Okay. And what was the basis for retention?
He was raising some concerns about traffic flow in the area, in particular, the railroad underpass on Magnolia Avenue.
Okay, directing your attention to the right to the photographs that are there. Can you identify that photograph? And what is that a photograph of?
That is a photograph of the railroad underpass on Magnolia Avenue.
And is that a fair representation of the underpass in question?
Yes, it is.
Okay. In the course of your preparation for this assignment, can you please identify all the documents that you reviewed?
I reviewed the traffic impact and access study primarily that Mr. Woodland's organization provided. And that study was bundled with material submitted to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts with regard to the DEP site assignment process.
Did you also review the suitability application as well with the Appendix C, which is the transportation study?
Yes,
Okay. And do you conduct a field assessment on that underpass?
yes, I did on May 5th. I believe I went out there again the last time I was in Gloucester.
Okay. And what observations did you make regarding the underpass?
The first observation is the width. I measured the width, and it was about 22 feet. I noted that the underpass is signed as having a height of 13 feet 6 inches. The speed limit in the area, I believe, is 20 miles per hour. I noticed 2 catch basins underneath the underpass at the edge of Magnolia Avenue. I noted that the sidewalls of the underpass are near vertical. There are some scratches or gouges on at least one of the walls of the underpass. And I noted the location of the underpass. It's right as you're approaching a curve, a significant horizontal curve to the north of the underpass on Magnolia Avenue. And I noted that the intersection with Laurel Street is immediately to the north of the underpass.
And did you do any research regarding the number of vehicle trips that were made on Magnolia Avenue, both northbound and southbound?
I did from the applicant's traffic study.
And what was the number that was listed in the applicant's traffic study?
I would actually have to refer to a document if I might, because I don't have those memorized.
Go ahead.
And I'm referring to my memorandum that I believe has been submitted into evidence.
It's been submitted at this point, just submitted. We haven't introduced as formally evidence.
I'm sorry, are you offering the memorandum? in
Not
evidence?
yet.
Okay.
Okay. Or if it's okay,
You can read it.
the existing volume was 2,633 total vehicle trips over the course of the day. And the existing heavy vehicle trips were 148 over the course of the day. And added by the project, 140 truck trips. It might be 136, but those numbers are both pretty close to each other. I also noted that an added 140 truck trips represents an added 95% of the 148 existing heavy vehicle trips. So a little under a doubling of the heavy vehicle trips.
And this information you received from the tech reports?
It's it's either in or can be derived from the numbers that are in the traffic study.
And did you make any determinations regarding the peak hour traffic, both morning and afternoon?
Yes. I reviewed the automatic traffic recorder information that's appended to the traffic study. And I have numbers I could recite to you if you'd like me to.
Well, let me back up. Did you make a determination what the peak heavy truck was currently going on the underpass, both northbound and southbound?
For the peak hours,
Yes.
for the morning peak hour, 13, and for the afternoon peak hour, 8.
And this
Correct.
is based on the current use of Magnolia Avenue, is that correct?
Current as of the traffic count in the traffic study.
Okay. And I believe you heard Mr. Woodland testify that there will be now 7 out northbound and 7 southbound new trips.
Yes.
Can you, for the purposes of peak hours, can you convert that to how many trips per hour, or how many trips per minute will be going under the underpass, either northbound or southbound during the morning peak?
Existing or with the added truck?
With added.
Okay, the added trucks will be adding roughly 1 truck per 4 minutes.
Excuse me, is this information in your memorandum? Are you referring to your memorandum for this information?
This information is not in my memorandum, but I remember it from the other documentation, the documents by Tetra Tech and Weston and Sampson.
So it is fair to say that any information that you've derived or extrapolated from the information that was provided by Tetra Tech pursuant to this application, is that correct?
That is Tetra Tech, and I also, subsequent to preparing my memorandum, looked at documents from Weston and Sampson and Weston and Sampson, yes.
Okay. So let me go back and address the question again. During the peak morning hour, how many trucks per minute go under the underpass, either northbound or southbound or both?
It's 13 total of both directions, so that would be roughly 1 every 4 to 5 minutes.
And if you add the 7 trips that are projected under the new application, what does that mean per minute?
It would be 14 total of both directions, so it'd be 13 plus 14 is 27 total. So that's 1 every, I believe, a little over 2 minutes.
Is that both northbound and southbound?
Total of both directions.
And what is that for the afternoon, for the PM peak period?
For the PM, 8 existing plus 14 added is 22. So that's 1 every roughly 3 minutes total of both directions.
Okay, so every 2 minutes during peak hour, a truck will be going northbound or southbound during the morning peak hour, is that correct?
Approximately.
And on average, and for the afternoon, it's every 3 minutes, a truck will be going under that as underpass.
Approximately on average.
Now, did you make any findings?
Yes, I did.
And what findings did you make?
The underpass width is about 22 feet, and that is not sufficient to provide unimpeded movement of vehicles, including heavy vehicles, and other users, including bicycles and pedestrians, particularly those traveling in opposing directions. The width is not sufficient, unimpeded. Vehicles and other road users need to simultaneously maneuver and negotiate the intersection with Laurel Street and the curve to the immediate north of the intersection. So there's the interplay of the juxtaposition of the underpass, the immediately adjacent intersection, and the immediately adjacent curve. Vehicles and other road users, particularly those in opposite directions, must adjust their operations to negotiate the area. Trucks, including mirrors, can exceed 9 feet in width. The number of heavy vehicles in the area will increase due to the proposed facility. I also heard reports of existing drainage and icing issues. I've seen photographs of the drainage issues. And my last conclusion is that basically there's more information needed. The city is not able to find, in my opinion, that the intersection can safely and appropriately accommodate motor vehicles of various directions bicycles and pedestrians.
That's not your specific finding. You're more making recommendations to city what they have to address based on your concerns. Is that correct?
I have some thoughts on what the city should do.
You're aware of the 5 traffic and access site criteria that are included within the site suitability criteria, you're not?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And they include traffic congestion, pedestrian and vehicle safety, road configurations, alternate routes, and vehicle emissions. Based on your report, does your report address any of these criteria?
It goes toward the issue of road configuration above all. Yes, you can mention congestion. The vehicles have to slow down and maneuver, and they will operate differently where that underpass is. They can't proceed unimpeded, especially if they're heavy vehicles. But that's all due to the configuration of the area.
Is there any other ways that your findings relate to the suitability criteria under the vehicle section?
Moment. Well, pedestrian and vehicular safety is one of the criteria. And I don't believe that the city has enough information yet, at least in my opinion, to make a finding on that. And alternative routes for the heavy vehicles, there really isn't an alternative route. The heavy vehicles have to go under the underpass. They cannot turn right out of Kondelin and go down Magnolia to the south. They have to go under the underpass. And if there is an incident under the underpass that blocks off a route that is limited in its alternatives, that section of the city, potentially.
If there was a school bus stop that was located near the bridge underpass, will that give you a concern regarding pedestrian and vehicular safety?
Actually, anything regarding pedestrian safety needs to be considered more, given the tight geometry and the sightlines in the area. Any pedestrian circulation or bicycle circulation for that matter.
Do you believe, based on your observations and the information you garnered, that 2 heavy trucks or 2 tractor trailers could simultaneously pass under that underpass coming from the northbound and the southbound at the same time?
It depends. I don't know the answer to that. They have to be aligned in a very perfect manner. A truck that's over 9 feet wide, including mirrors, and a clearance of 22 feet, and the fact that curvature exists, and the walls are nearly vertical on the underpass, the fact that there's turning movements going on at the Laurel Street intersection. I would say the vehicles would be certainly impeded. They'd have to slow down and judge carefully. I don't know that they could squeak through. I don't know the answer to that.
Would you consider the introduction of 9 additional northbound and 9 additional southbound heavy truck traffic under that underpass in light of the number of trucks that pass under that now a minor or a major increase?
I have not done detailed analysis. I can't give a firm qualitative assessment. I will say that if you're doing a normal traffic impact and access study, that number of trucks would not normally have a big effect on the level of service at a normal intersection. But here we're looking at a different type of location, a special location with a relatively unique configuration. So I cannot give a firm qualitative assessment, but I will say there will be an effect.
But would it fair to say that if the current heavy truck activity northbound and southbound is 20 vehicles during the peak hours, and we're now adding another 7 vehicles each way in the peak hours, that's a significant increase?
The existing is 13 in the morning peak hour, and they'd be adding 14. So it depends on how you look at the numbers. It's more or less a doubling of the numbers. And at an intersection, if you're doubling 13 vehicles and making it 14 and calculating 13 vehicles and making it 27, it's not going to usually show up in the level of service analysis as any significant impact. But here, it's a special location with a special configuration, and it's if I don't know, I would say that more investigation needs to be done.
Mr. Nestor, I'm going to interrupt for a second. One of my main jobs here is to make sure the record is clear for the board, so bear with me. You were asked whether you have an opinion on whether the increase in heavy truck traffic at the underpass from this project in the AM peak hour, actually you were asked overall, would be a major or minor increase. And you qualified your answer in several ways, so I just want to hear a clear answer. Do you have an opinion to the best of your professional level of certainty, whether it would be a major or minor increase?
It would be premature for me to definitely qualify my opinion. More information needs to be gathered.
And then you were asked the same question for the AM peak hour. Same answer?
Same answer.
Okay, thank you.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Mr. Durning or Mr. Viteri?
Thank you very much. Mr. Hazavardian, my name's Peter Durning. I'm counsel for the Board of Health. Mr. Hazavardian, were you reading from notes other than your TEP memorandum at the podium today?
And Mr. Durning, I'm sorry to interrupt. That was my mistake. I was so used to going to you
Okay.
second. Mr. Favaza probably gets to cross
That's
first.
fine.
I'm happy with having the board go. I thought it makes sense to have the board go
Okay.
first for everybody, and then I'll come behind them like the other interested parties.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Joel could have gone first too. Mr. Hazavardian, did you have notes with you other than the memo?
Yes, I did.
Oh, and what are those notes?
A spreadsheet that has the existing heavy vehicle volumes. I looked at, I actually looked at a document from Weston and Sampson to refresh myself on the criteria. And that was about it.
That was about it, or that was it?
That was it.
Thank you.
I have other notes with me, but I didn't refer to them, other documents.
Mr. Hazavardian, in response to Attorney Nestor's question regarding the criteria, you made observations about road configuration, congestion, and pedestrian safety and alternate routes. You didn't express a conclusion that you believe that based on these factors, this project would present a danger to public health, safety, and the environment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what is the basis for your conclusion in paragraph 5 of your pre-filed direct testimony that the underpass area is not sufficient to provide unimpeded movement of vehicles, including heavy vehicles that would be servicing the C&D transfer station at 24 Kondelin Road in Gloucester, Massachusetts?
observing the field conditions out there and driving it myself with a non-heavy vehicle.
Did you perform any modeling or data analysis to come to that conclusion?
Other than the field measurements and observations, no, I didn't do any computer modeling or anything along those lines.
Mr. Hazavardian, what is your definition of, quote, unimpeded movement of vehicles?
Unimpeded would be a normal flow quality that you'd see on a road similar to, let's say, the rest of Magnolia Avenue, where vehicles don't have to be as concerned about other vehicles basically sharing the pavement, particularly in the opposite direction. Here vehicles going in one direction have to watch for vehicles coming from the other direction, particularly heavy vehicles. And in addition to that, they have to make sure they're not squeezing other road users against those walls, which don't exist elsewhere on Magnolia Avenue.
Do those circumstances which you just described necessarily constitute a danger to public health, safety, and the environment?
It constitutes the need to investigate further.
I guess I'll reiterate my question. Based on the information that you do have and your description of what unimpeded movement of vehicles constitutes, particularly in this area, do you find that your characterization alone constitutes a finding that it presents a danger to public health, safety, and the environment?
I do not make that finding, but I cannot find the other way.
That was the only question. In paragraph 5, you mention that the underpass area is not sufficient to provide unimpeded movement of vehicles, including heavy vehicles. Are there any other types or subset of vehicle that would be impeded in their movement through this underpass?
Even a normal vehicle, when I say normal, I'm talking a passenger car-sized vehicle, would need to exercise additional caution and observance in that area. So that the wording applies to basically anything using the underpass. Plus, it can be a combination of vehicles. You might have a passenger car going in one direction and a heavy vehicle coming from the other direction at the same time, or there might be two vehicles approaching the underpass at the same time. A pedestrian or bicycle is also under there, so that it all works together.
Is that phrase you used, unimpeded movement of vehicles, is that the only criteria for assessing the safety of a roadway?
No, it's not.
If it is not, what are some other factors that should be considered?
Well, looking at the geometry, the measurements, looking at crash history, both in the state's records and at the city's, records, discussions with the police and fire department, looking at crash damage, like the scratches that are probably from passing vehicles along the underpass walls. So there are a number of factors you look into. Also, there are ways of doing conflict studies where you look at near misses and close or uncomfortable encounters.
And did you perform these analysis?
No, I didn't.
What evidence can you provide regarding the impact that heavy vehicles will have on the movement of vehicles at the underpass?
It will increase the impedance. I cannot quantify how much, and I can neither conclude that it will create an unsafe condition or not. I cannot conclude one way or the other at this point. The vehicles do tend to adjust their operations, and that's a way of avoiding collisions. But it still results in impedance, and I don't know that we can say for sure that it will continue to prevent collisions.
Is that concept that drivers will adjust and assess the safety of a particular situation a consideration that you make when you, as a traffic expert, are assessing the extent to which a particular area constitutes a danger to public health, safety, and the environment?
Could you repeat that, please?
You described the actions of drivers assessing a circumstance and maybe adjusting their speed or their trajectory. And my question to you was, is that behavior something that you would consider when making an assessment about whether a particular area constituted a danger to public health, safety, and the environment?
That would be a factor.
And Mr. Hasvardian, just referring to your memo, the TEP memorandum dated May 12th, 2025. This was not included in your pre-filed direct testimony, but on the first page of the memorandum, is that your professional engineering stamp and signature?
Yes.
Thank you. At the bottom of the first page of the memo, you note that without additional information, the city of Gloucester is not able to find that the underpass can safely and appropriately accommodate motor vehicles of various dimensions, bicycles and pedestrians. Did you, in your review, affirmatively find that the underpass cannot safely and appropriately accommodate motor vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians?
In my review, found that the vehicles and other road users will have impeded flow. They have to negotiate the roadway, so to speak. But I was not able to take it to the level of it constituting unsafe conditions. It needs more investigation.
Though in that last bullet point at the bottom of your first memo, you state that the city of Gloucester is not able to find that the underpass can safely and appropriately accommodate motor vehicles of various dimensions, bicycles and pedestrians. Has the city of Gloucester expressed that opinion already?
I do not know.
In your opinion, as a traffic engineer, do you believe that the posted speed limit of 20 miles an hour does the posted speed limit of 20 miles per hour helps to preserve public health and safety?
I do not know. I don't believe it's a detriment to public safety. I can't quantify whether it has created a meaningful benefit to public safety.
Mr. Hazavardian, in your testimony earlier, you noted that you did have some ideas about what the city could do. Could you elaborate on that?
Well,
Let me, hold on a second. How does this relate to the criteria? What the city might do to ameliorate traffic anywhere?
If there were affirmative things that Mr. Hazavardian believed should be in place to help protect public health, safety, and the environment, I think that would be relevant to understand.
First of all, your formulation wasn't related to the project. That could be taken to mean today. I'll let you ask a couple of questions, but not a lot.
Okay, it was in response to his statement that he did have ideas about what could be done. So
I'm
that-
sure he does. They may be wonderful, but I'm having trouble relating them to what this board needs to decide. Maybe they should be done with or without the project, but I can't. That's not relevant to me. Go ahead if you want. I won't cut you off yet, but I'm just telling you I'm not seeing the relevance.
Mr. Hazavardian, in fact, I'll attempt to rephrase that, but in anticipation of the traffic increases associated with this project, do you believe that there are engineering measures and traffic control measures that could be taken to increase public safety at the Magnolia Underpass?
my earlier testimony really meant that there were things that the city could do to check further into safety at that location. More of an investigation from the applicant or wherever the city decides to do it.
And earlier in response to your testimony, you talked about the potential increase of 14 additional truck trips in the morning and afternoon peak hours. But you mentioned that these total of 27 trucks from the existing and the 14 additional would not necessarily impact the level of service at a regular intersection. Did I get that testimony correct?
That type of an increase generally would not make much of an impact on level of service at a stop sign controlled intersection or signalized intersection. Once in a while, it will, but usually not. If you have a level of service, I'm making up numbers here, C with an average delay of 32 seconds, that type of increase isn't going to change things to a level of service F with a delay of 92 seconds, for example.
And did you make any specific assessment of the impact on the increase of traffic associated with the facility on the level of service at the Magnolia Underpass?
Normally, we wouldn't do a level of service calculation for conditions under an underpass.
Or the level of service at the intersection between Magnolia Avenue and Laurel?
No, I did not.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. The witness has talked about the TEP memo. Mr. Nestor, you declined to offer it at the time. I think the board might as well see it. and the board has had it, I think. Any objection to making that the next exhibit?
No objection.
None from me.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sorry. It's the TEP memo dated May 12, right? I think you read the whole title. I didn't get it all.
Right.
Okay.
I'd like to formally introduce the May 12, 2005, three-page memo.
Yeah. Hearing no objection from anyone, let's exhibit 13.
Thank you.
Do you have a copy, an official copy of it? Meaning, do you have a copy that we can call part of the record? Yeah, from, received one in the past.
We have one from the past.
All right, so when we put the official exhibit binder together, you've got one. Okay. Thank you. Now let's turn then to the other interveners. I think, Mr. Favaza, you were content to go after everyone?
Oh, so I went to go after Board of Health, and I can go last. I can absolutely go last. That's
No,
fine.
if you're ready now, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Housevardian. Joel Favaza, on behalf of EWS, the applicant. So I don't want to rehash what's already been stated out there, but I do want to make sure we clarify a few things. You mentioned that a lot of the figures you were citing came from the Tetra Tech traffic study, correct?
Correct.
And you reviewed the traffic study in its entirety?
No.
What portions of the traffic study did you observe? Or
Primarily, the portions are related to volumes, traffic volumes related to the underpass.
so safe to say you did not review the data pertaining to the traffic flow at the intersections cited on the other intersections cited in the traffic report?
Other than to see them as I was perusing through the document, that's correct.
Okay. When you were observing the portion of the traffic study you read through, did you have any reason to question the reliability of the data being presented?
I didn't review the other portions.
Only as the portion whatever page of that traffic study you read, as you're reading it, anything jump off the page and say, that ain't right?
No, nothing jumped off the page.
Okay. You also mentioned that you made field observations.
Correct.
Which days or days did you make field observations?
May 5th and the last day I was here, whatever date that happened to be.
Okay.
Sorry, was that the 29th, when you were here?
You were here a couple times.
That sounds all right.
The most recent,
I mean, the
It
29th,
was
the
either
20th.
that one, today's the 29th.
Yeah, 20th.
So it was I believe it was a
the
20th.
20th, Tuesday?
Right in that time
Yeah.
frame, though.
On May 5th, how long were you out there observing?
In the general area, probably drove back and forth and it half an hour, let's say I was out there.
We say general area, what is the general area?
I started off at Route 128 and I drove all the way to the south end of Magnolia Avenue, but I concentrated on the underpass area.
So of the 30 minutes in which you were concentrating, 30 minutes in which you were in the general area, you concentrated on the underpass. How many minutes of that 30 minutes on May 5th were you at the underpass or in visual observation of the underpass?
Well, I was generally driving under the underpass and making a U-turn somewhere and driving back, so.
Okay. You drove the half an hour in the general area you're counting as from 128 off ramp out to the southern side of Magnolia Avenue. That means you drove past Kondelin Road all the way out to the intersection with Western Avenue?
And I also drove up and down Kondelin Road one time, too.
Okay. You testified a moment ago you were doing U-turns to make repeated passes under the underpass. How many times did you travel the full length of the general area?
Oh, I've got to say, this is maybe a couple of times, not numerous times.
While you're out there observing, did you observe any heavy trucks on Magnolia Avenue?
No, I did not notice any.
You stated that you had been hired by Mr. Farrar, correct?
Yes,
Did he state to you, primary concern, a primary reason for hiring you?
we had a brief conversation, and it looked like, based on the conversation, the underpass was the area of concern. We both kind of zeroed in on that.
Was it the area of concern in general or the area of concern with relation to heavy truck traffic?
The configuration and conditions at the underpass combined with the truck traffic.
Okay. And so despite being out there, understanding the concern, you didn't wait to observe heavy truck traffic before leaving the site?
That is correct.
Okay. During your passes or observations, did you see other vehicles, non-heavy trucks, navigating the underpass?
Yes, including myself.
Okay. Did any of those vehicles experience a crash?
No,
Didn't strike another vehicle?
no,
Didn't strike the wall?
no.
In addition to that very short observation period relating to crash, did you review any crash data prior to this evening?
I didn't conduct a formal review. I did look at the I looked at the state's database, and I saw a couple of crashes, just like
Mr. Woodland?
I think Weston and Sampson found.
This is
But I wouldn't call that a review. It's just something I checked. But then when I went in the field, I saw the scratches, and I said something probably happened out here, or has been happening.
So were you here when Mr. Woodland testified that he reviewed crash data and found 2 accidents in the last 20 years?
Yes.
Based on what you just stated, do you have any reason to believe that's incorrect?
As far as the state's database goes, I have no reason to believe that's incorrect.
Okay. And so I appreciate, that you would seek additional information. However, fair to say this crash data is additional information beyond what you had reviewed prior to your initial May Exhibit 13 being produced?
The actual crash data, aside from me casually looking at it, yes.
Okay. And so I'm gonna leave that there. In your observation of what you referred to as the general area, I'd like to actually just trim that down to between 128 and Kondelin Road. I don't need you to testify beyond Kondelin Road on Magnolia Avenue. When you exited Route 128, do you know the name of the road you exited onto?
Oh, was it? I'm not sure.
If you don't know, you don't know. That's,
I'd have to look at the traffic site to refresh myself. I could take a stab at it and say what I think it was.
I don't need you to say what you think it was.
Sorry, Mr. Hasvardian, could you hold the mic up a little bit?
Sure.
Or put it in the holder and swing that toward you, maybe, if that's easier? Easier. There we go. Okay. Yeah, just make sure that's close to you. That's good. Thank you.
Are you aware of are you aware of the relation or the intersectionality between Route 128 and Essex Avenue in Gloucester?
In a general sense, it's an interchange.
Okay. Do you know Does Essex Avenue, so you can testify that you are aware Essex Avenue, sorry, does Essex Avenue intersect Route 128?
That's what I would have found if I looked at the traffic study, and that's what I was going to say. I think it was Essex Avenue, and it is.
Are you familiar with the location of State Route 133?
I'm wondering if that is Essex Avenue. Yeah.
So I guess when you came down the off-ramp off 128 onto the next street, was your flow of traffic unimpeded?
When I came off of 128.
Yeah, you got down to the end of the
to
off-ramp.
yield or stop at the end of the ramp.
Is that an impediment?
And then that's an intentional impedance due to a traffic control device. And then I proceeded down Essex Avenue, and I believe I turned right onto Kondelin, onto Magnolia Avenue.
And that right-hand turn, would that be an unimpeded traffic movement?
The right-hand turn?
From the Essex Avenue onto Magnolia Avenue? The right-hand turn you just spoke about?
That would be, normally, it'd be unimpeded unless I were yielding to a pedestrian or something that happened to be out there.
So if a pedestrian's crossing the mouth of Magnolia Avenue where it hits Essex Avenue, you'd be impeded in your flow of traffic turning from Essex onto Magnolia?
Correct.
Okay. If you were coming from the Kondelin Road area along Magnolia Avenue, you go under the underpass. Do you know, sorry, I'm not trying to testify here. Heading from Kondelin on Magnolia Avenue, what road do you end up at if you proceed on Magnolia Avenue to the end of the road?
All the way to the end?
All the way to the end, taking a left out of
Is
Kondelin.
that Western Avenue?
Sorry, taking a left out of Kondelin all the way back, kind of the way you came.
If you take a left out of Kondelin,
Mhm.
that would put you on Magnolia Avenue northbound, which would eventually take you to Essex Avenue.
Okay. And then if you were to return to Route 128, what would your next move be?
It would be Magnolia, Essex, and I think that interchanges with Route 128.
Okay. As you come from Magnolia onto Essex, is your flow of traffic impeded?
Yes, you're stopping to make a left-hand turn.
And is there any, how does one know when it's safe to make that left-hand turn?
By looking at traffic approaching from either direction.
Okay. And so you said you observed Kondelin Road, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
briefly I did.
briefly. Can you describe what Kondelin Road is?
It's an industrial, I'd call it an industrial access road.
Okay. Any idea how large that industrial access area is?
In terms of,
Acreage?
no, I don't have an idea.
Okay. Sorry, just grabbing my form here. Are you aware of how long Magnolia Avenue has existed in its current location?
No, I'm not.
Are you aware of how long Essex Avenue has existed in its current location?
Essex Avenue?
Mhm.
Essex Avenue, the interchange from, with Route 128, I'm sure it dates back to the 1940s or early 50s. And Essex Avenue was probably around long before then in general.
Okay. Are you aware of any more direct routes to get to the Kondelin Road industrial park from Route 128 other than Essex Avenue, Magnolia Avenue?
For trucks, I'm not aware of it.
I mean, even by passenger vehicle, is there a more direct route from Route 128 than Essex Avenue, Magnolia Avenue?
You know, I'm not sure. I didn't look into that for passenger cars.
But again, to go back to what you, I think, were starting to say, for heavy truck traffic, is there an alternate route from 128 to Kondelin Road?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you know whether or not Kondelin Road predates or postdates Magnolia Avenue?
I am fairly certain not. I have not researched it, but Kondelin Road is newer than Magnolia Avenue.
Are you aware of any since decommissioned alternate routes that would get you from 128 to Kondelin Road other than Essex Avenue and Magnolia Avenue?
Could you repeat the first?
Are you aware of any decommissioned or abandoned alternate routes that would get you from 128 to Kondelin Road from other than Essex Avenue to Magnolia?
I'm not aware.
Did you observe in the area of the underpass a striped bike lane?
No,
Did you observe sidewalks?
no,
Did you observe crosswalks painted in the vicinity of the underpass?
no,
Did you observe any roadway construction elements or accessories that would encourage pedestrian traffic in and around the underpass?
encourage it? No,
Would you say that sidewalks encourage pedestrian traffic on a road?
it encourages pedestrian traffic not in the road, basically.
And just to clarify, the statement earlier about having a few ideas, you had a few ideas for additional data collection, but no ideas at this point for improvement of the underpass.
Well, when I limited my answer that way, because that was what I was referring to when I made my initial comment.
Okay.
Of course, I have ideas as an engineer, but they'd be strictly hypothetical and premature at this time.
Right. Because as you testified, you're unable to make a finding that the underpass is currently unsafe.
Correct.
And you personally, in witnessing traffic and driving through it yourself, did not witness, either single or multiple car accidents.
Yes, correct.
So I was asked, did you see any pedestrians walking under the underpass while traffic?
When I was out there, no.
Any bicyclists?
When I was out there, no.
Okay, so safe to say you didn't see any cars striking pedestrians or bicyclists while you were out there?
I did not see any such collision.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I think we'll go down the row of the other interveners and see if anyone has questions in the nature of cross-examination, although you may be aligned with this party. But anyway, let's start at the end. Any questions for this witness? Ms. Davis? Yes? Okay.
Testing. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hazavardian. My name is Kylie Davis. As the road currently exists, in your professional opinion, do you think it is safe to navigate Magnolia Avenue via Kondelin Road to Essex Avenue by pedestrians?
I don't have an opinion on that. I haven't studied it.
In your professional opinion, is a road with no sidewalks a safe place for pedestrians?
It depends on how many pedestrians there are, how many motor vehicles there are, and what the speeds of the motor vehicles are.
Okay. Does the increased traffic projections with the addition of the facility increase chances of an accident?
Yes,
Does the increased traffic projections with the addition of this facility increase the potential of an accident underneath the bridge?
yes,
In your professional opinion, are children standing at the bus stops along Magnolia Avenue
Objection. No one has testified to the existence of bus stops.
People have referred to a bus stop. I'm not sure where it is. Will there be testimony where the bus stops are from anybody who is lined up to testify?
I would like to submit an exhibit of evidence for the CADA bus stops and the Gloucester Public School bus stops along the road.
I would object to that unless someone's here to verify from CADA or the Gloucester Public School System that they're accurate.
Yes. I'm sorry? Okay. You don't have a mic, so let me just repeat what you said. Ms. Rashane submitted what was it, a map of bus stops or a list? All right. So again, nobody's offered that in evidence, and I don't know where that data came from or where you got it.
So if I offered into evidence at this time that information, would I be able to ask the questions to it? Sorry, yeah,
Well, let me look at the exhibits. Do you have a copy? Not the exhibit, but the document.
yes, give me 1 second.
Yep.
Our copies will be provided to all parties.
I'll find that out. Okay, so this is a 10 or so page document. Is this what you submitted, Ms. Rashane? Okay, so has this ever been submitted? Has it ever been shown to the parties, or was it identified before the hearing? Okay, then I'm not going to. Yes, when you were allowed to intervene, you then became subject to the pre-hearing order that required all interveners to identify fact witnesses and submit copies of documents they intended to introduce.
So if I'm able to give this document that she had already introduced, I would be able to question based on that data.
Have the other parties seen that? I assume you served everyone when you submitted it, Ms.
To
Rashane?
reply all to everyone that was on the email.
All right.
Uh,
So this document I'm not going to allow because it wasn't properly, or not say properly, but it wasn't circulated or submitted pursuant to my order, and nobody has seen it. If there's some other document that you want to offer, I'll look at that.
Thanks. This is all you sent.
All right, now I'm looking at a one-page document, Ms. Rashane. Ms. Rashane, this is the document that you submitted, a one-page document that is a system map. It's not it's from Tim Kozma as a driver, but it's not identified as CADA. Has everybody seen this document, I assume,
Uh,
at some point with Ms. Rashane's?
That looks
Visions
like a
of the dream.
page. Yeah, I think it's a page that was submitted with her
It's-
fact witness.
Say it
Yeah,
again? I didn't hear that.
Is a page, is there a page number on that? I believe it's a subset of something that was
It says page 4.
yeah.
It's Run, West Parish, 1 a.m., Red Bus is the title.
So again,
So I submitted a 5-page, basically 5 pages of testimony, and I included that in the test. So it's an excerpt, it's just on the Cato
All
website.
right. Well, Ms. Davis now wants to offer it in evidence. Is there any objection?
yes.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. I don't know what this shows or really where it came from. It doesn't even say CADA on it.
Objection.
Okay, Ms. Davis, just to repeat for people to hear, this is from the Gloucester Public Schools, not from CADA.
No, it is, sorry.
All right, you know what? I'm not going to allow this now. I don't know.
I'll ask my question differently.
Thank you.
Just for point of clarification, I did raise on direct examination the issue of the bus stop near the bridge sign on Magnolia Avenue just before the bridge.
You said hypothetically, if there were a bus stop. You said hypothetically, if there were a bus stop at Laurel Street. I'm sorry, the hypothetical was your initial caveat to that sentence.
People wanted to talk about bus stops. They needed to properly identify a document and a witness, and then offer evidence of a bus stop. Questions can be hypothetical, assuming there is such a bus stop, if the evidence that there is a bus stop is going to come later. Doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be in a particular sequence. But I'm not seeing any evidence of a bus stop.
With all due respect, Mr. Krieger, we're trying our best. This is very foreign to us.
I understand that.
So,
You-
I understood that when we had something to ask the question, if we had the evidence or the exhibits, we could then try to enter it into it to be considered moving forward. So if that's not the case, I will rephrase my question.
Look, the interveners have grappled with a lot here, and I'm not criticizing. I tried to make my pre-hearing order and my subsequent emails as clear as possible, knowing that there were a lot of people who had to digest them, and that many of those people were not lawyers. I think I was clear on this issue. Go ahead, if you can rephrase your question, not to rely on any documents regarding bus stops, sure.
Okay. Mr. Harzavarian, if hypothetically a child got on a bus at 8:26 a.m. on Magnolia Avenue and traveled down that road under the bridge that we have been discussing, would the additional traffic by this facility increase the chances of an accident?
All other factors held equal, yes, the exposure would go up.
Thank you. Mr. Harzavarian, if a pedestrian was awaiting a potential bus that was run by a local company where they boarded the bus on Magnolia Avenue and rode down Magnolia Avenue underneath the bridge, would their risk of an accident increase with the addition of this facility?
The volumes would increase, therefore the exposure increases.
So in your professional opinion, with the increase of exposure to an accident, would that possibly would that affect the public health, safety, and wellness of the people of Gloucester?
From an engineering point of view, I can say the crash exposure goes up with increasing volume. Is my microphone working okay, everybody? Yes, it is.
As long as you keep it close, yes.
Okay. In my opinion of how engineering fits in with the rest of the world, it's probably not just an engineer's decision on what constitutes enough of a change in the environment or public health and safety.
Thank you.
EDIC, just a quick question. So if I interpret what you just said, is any expansion of Cape Ann Industrial Park with additional employers or expansion of existing companies with increased traffic, you would reach this same conclusion that the crash goes up with increasing volume. Is that correct?
All other factors being equal, that's the case. For example, let's say you have an intersection with a crash rate of 0.1 crashes per million entering vehicles. If you double the number of vehicles, yet keep that crash rate constant, then the expected number of crashes doubles, okay, as a general concept.
No further questions.
Hi, I'm Laura Rashane. Just a couple quick questions. You mentioned observing the scrapes on the wall in the underpass. Given your background and expertise, could those conceivably have happened as a result of accidents that did not make it into the record? Is it possible that there have been more accidents than have officially been reported?
That is possible.
You also mentioned that, I believe, you feel that there should be more investigation before a determination is made about how dangerous the underpass is. Is it fair to say then that you just don't think we have enough information? It's not that it's not dangerous, it's just that we don't know?
Correct.
And what is the additional steps you would suggest to investigate that?
I would obtain the city's crash records for that area, and I would consult with the police department and the fire department. That would be a starting point. Another possible avenue would be for an engineer to run an auto turn or some other turning template to see what's going on, see whether the vehicles are conflicting, see to what degree the vehicle paths conflict with one another in opposing directions.
I'm Judy Rose. You had mentioned that you are knowledgeable about the flooding or the drainage issues underneath the bridge. Can you elaborate on what you do know about that a little bit further? And also, could you explain whether it is a puddle or a significant amount of water? And if, in your opinion, that vehicles can pass through that area, and this is all under the bridge?
The only physical evidence I've seen is on one of the photographs, and it might be in that deck. I don't have enough knowledge to say how deep the puddling is or how much flooding happens. And I'm not sure what would constitute an impassable condition. I'd have to research that more. Perhaps people in the police or fire department could shed some more light on that as to what's gone on there in the past.
Okay, so you don't know how deep a puddle would have to be or a flooding zone in order for a vehicle to safely pass through an amount of water? You don't know what that number
It
is?
depends on the vehicle. It depends, for example, in our family, as an anecdote, we have a passenger car type vehicle and a fairly high up SUV. It's fair to assume that high up SUV would do a little better. And there are other factors. Is the water flowing at any particular speed? If it's flowing at a higher speed, then it makes it difficult.
And in your professional opinion, if an accident were to occur in that area and there were trucks on either side of the bridge, how would they maneuver out of there? How would a large truck that is coming down the hill of Magnolia Ave and then not able to proceed for one reason or another, whatever it may be, would they be able to turn around, do a U-turn to turn around? What would the result of that be?
So in other words, if you're coming from Essex Avenue and the bridge is impassable underneath, what do? You find a place to do a multi-point turn, I would imagine. I don't know if Laurel Street would work for that or not. I haven't investigated it. And then you'd have to go away. I don't know, this is hypothetical. I don't know what they do. I don't know if they'd ease the vehicle weight restriction to the south of Magnolia Avenue. I don't know what would happen.
And the same question is if they were coming down Magnolia Avenue, away from Kondelin Road, coming towards Essex Avenue, from Magnolia Ave, what would a truck be able to do there? Because I'm assuming, and I don't know if the road is, Magnolia Ave is wide enough to be able to make a turn.
Magnolia Avenue itself would be difficult with a large truck to make a three-point turn. They'd have to find some stub. There's a driveway just south of the underpass. I don't know if that would be serviceable or not. Vehicles might have to do some backing. I haven't investigated. And I don't know if they'd end up easing that weight restriction to the south on Magnolia Avenue so people go out the other way or not. But it's something that I can't really testify to. Everything I'm saying is hypothetical. It would be a significant event in terms of having to reroute traffic.
Would it be a danger to bicyclists or pedestrians if a large truck was trying to back up Magnolia Ave, since you're saying that's probably not possible for them to turn around?
Well, I didn't say it's probably not possible. It might not be possible, or they might have to back before they could reach a point to turn around. Backing is generally more difficult than moving forward, but I don't want to testify too hypothetically. It might be there's something like that happened and first responders were there. They could help with the backing maneuvers. It's certainly not desirable to have to back down a road, whether you're dealing with motor vehicles or or bicycles or pedestrians potentially being out there.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Hartman. My name is Wendy Hansberry with the Manchester Board of Health. Sure. Oh, that does make a difference. Just a couple of questions about, you testified not seeing any pedestrians or bicyclists when you were out there in person observing. What was the weather when you were there?
It was, I recall it being kind of gray. Someone could probably check what the weather actually was on the 5th. It wasn't pouring rain or anything like that, but it wasn't what I call pedestrian and bicycle friendly weather either.
So 60 degrees or less, maybe. Is that no, you're not gonna, that's fine.
I don't want to get caught making a wrong statement, but it wasn't a day where I say, oh, it's a good day to hop on the bike.
Okay. When making your observations, I didn't, and you might have said this, I didn't catch what time you were out there, that half an hour you were out there.
It was in the afternoon sometime, and I'm not sure exactly when.
Okay. Light or dark?
It was light.
It was light out. Okay. So when you were making your observations, you did not see any water. You said it wasn't raining.
I'm not sure if it totally was dry. I really don't remember. It was, I seem to recall it being kind of gray out at least. And I
Okay.
may have had my windshield wipers on the way home.
Okay. My other question is there's a mention of like sidewalks and, pedestrians. Do sidewalks provide any reliable indication of the number of pedestrians one would find somewhere?
In other words, if you see a sidewalk, does that give you information on how many pedestrians are out there?
Yes.
Not reliably. There's probably, should be some correlation. The more pedestrians, the more likely to have a sidewalk, but there are so many other factors that go into whether sidewalks are built or not.
Okay. Did you see any dog walkers out there or dogs? Did you hear or see
I-
any animals?
I did not notice any.
Okay. Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us back to redirect, if there is any.
Mr. Krieger, I have a quick procedural question.
Sure.
So, given that testimony was elicited, ostensibly on cross, is any recross going to be limited to testimony elicited strictly from redirect? Because, for example, my cross and the board's cross was only based on the testimony he had provided thus far, but certainly heard, I think Mr. Balfe was able to piggyback on testimony from cross before him to ask his question.
If I understand your question, here's my answer. If it's not the right question, you'll tell me. This is redirect. Anybody's cross of this, anybody's redirect of this witness will be based on the redirect that's coming
Okay.
and not anything else.
Okay, then I'd very much like to go last going forward. Thank you.
So am I missing something?
Well, I'm saying there's been testimony that was not elicited on his direct testimony, but was elicited as part of cross by other parties that I would like to be able to ask him about.
Yeah,
But again, if I'm limited
okay.
to redirect, which I understand,
Yeah, no, okay. You're right. What was ostensibly crossed by the other interveners, since they're aligned with Mr. Nestor and his group, was really a form of direct, is what you're saying.
yes.
Yeah, I'll let you
I'm going to
ask
object.
questions. Okay, let's do. I'm not making. Well, that's unfortunate because I urged the interveners to collaborate on their cross-examinations. So I'm sorry that nobody's talked to each other, but that's a separate issue. I'm not making any assumptions and certainly not casting any innuendos. I want to make sure that if there's cross-examination based on anybody else's examination, that I'm being fair to everybody. So let's have the redirect, and then let's see where we go from there.
I guess one alternative would be if Joel has other cross that he would pose, having heard the other testimony, perhaps he should go now and then any redirect
So recross before redirect?
in a manner.
Well, that's not a bad idea if the
I
parties.
think he raises a reasonable concern that he went before he heard other.
Yeah. So if we did that, Mr. Nestor, you'd be hearing Mr. Favaza's further cross, let's call it, and then do your redirect based on everything. Does that make sense to you?
It really doesn't, because then we reset the bar versus what we did with other witnesses previously, where technically if I did a cross and then heard the rest of the people do a cross that raised new information, I can go back and essentially recross again. So I don't think we should be changing the deck chairs now and say now for the first time, even though, because we are separate interveners, that we can take this out of sync. I think that should have been done way back when, and I'm concerned about if we do that and Attorney Favaza is allowed to recross, then if something comes up, does the other interveners have a right to recross on the recross before we get to redirect.
So Mr. Krieger, I could,
Mr. Favazza is right that he gets a chance at some time to cross on the other questioning that's been done, and everybody else can have the same kinds of rights. Uh, It's an unusual situation with so many different parties conducting an examination. That's a function of how many groups and people I allowed to intervene, which is basically everybody.
Mr. Krieg,
Yeah.
just sort of a point. Most of the interveners here, and myself included, are not legal minds where, and I'm just, no, the point is that listening to the legal people speak to the witnesses helps us understand some of the questions and information we're looking at and that are important to the board to consider. And so being able to ask that after hearing both sides and then allowing him to again ask questions after we've had our chance to ask questions does make sense. I think it's really important that we hear the legal questions that are being asked before we ask.
All right. A number of people have made legitimate points here, and thanks for everybody's thoughts on it. We'll proceed in the traditional way. Mr. Nestor, do redirect. Then we'll do recross, but you can ask on anybody's questions whether or not the parties consider themselves aligned or not. And then the board can ask based on everybody's questions, and then everybody else can ask. It'll basically be a free-for-all, but we're going to do it as quickly as we can. And by the end of it, everybody should have gotten to ask or hear somebody else ask everything. I mean, we've now had one full round of questioning, so I assume most of this is now out on the table, but let's hear.
Thank you. Briefly, you were asked a number of times whether you considered the underpass as a safety issue, and you said you couldn't make that determination. Can you make the determination the underpass is safe?
I think he said he couldn't determine either way. I don't mean to preempt the answer, but I've heard it a couple of times now. Go ahead.
My conclusion is that the underpass and its configuration in the area creates traffic impedance. I cannot say whether it is safe or unsafe, given the project going in or under consideration.
You were asked in cross-examination whether there were any other impeded movements besides heavy trucks, and you said you didn't know of any. Would you consider buses as an impeded movement?
Okay, here's what my assessment is. Buses actually are a larger vehicle. They're larger than the passenger car design designation, so to speak. So they would be considered heavy vehicles for most analyses, including under the bridge. But not just heavy vehicles are impeded. My normal minivan had to exercise extra caution and slow down more than the general travel speed on Magnolia Avenue to pass underneath with confidence in my own safety.
You were asked in cross-examination regarding the interchange of 128 and Essex Avenue as an egress to Kondelin. But you weren't asked about, you were of the intersection between Concord Street and 128?
Between Concord Street and...
You know the intersection of Concord Street and 128. You testified regarding the intersection of Essex Avenue and 128. Are you aware of the intersection of Concord Avenue and 128, which is the next exit down?
objection. Mr. Nestor unintentionally is misidentifying the roadway.
Well, let's see if what the witness's answer is. I'll hold your objection. Do you know the intersection he's referring to?
I know there are other interchanges.
Do you know the intersection he's referring to?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
That's fine.
And we're done with that.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Um, So if we did it the same way, Mr. Durning, you'd be next?
I have no recross on that.
Okay. And Mr. Favaza?
Thank you. And mine is brief. The two pieces you testified to that I wanted to touch on, you testified crash exposure goes up with volume of traffic, correct?
The exposure goes up commensurate with traffic, all other factors being equal.
Okay. And you testified, Mr. Balf, that, should industrial park expand or a facility in there add additional employers, additional traffic would lead to an additional exposure?
Yes.
When you travel on Magnolia Avenue, did you observe any residential properties?
Any what?
Any residential properties along Magnolia Avenue?
Yes.
If those households had children that became teenage drivers and the number of cars in their driveway being used on the Magnolia Avenue went up, would that increase crash exposure for Magnolia Avenue?
When that happens, I have to give a little bit of a complicated answer on that. Typically, in a neighborhood, sometimes households add cars and sometimes households lose cars. So
If a household adds cars, do they add exposure for crashes in the underpass? Adds drivers.
household added cars and no other household reduced cars, then that would be the case. But that's very hypothetical.
No, I understood. And then the other part I want to talk about is you testified on cross that you thought there was models, like an auto turn model that could be run to model under the underpass. But you did not run that, correct?
Correct.
Why not?
Because that would be part of the further investigation that I'm suggesting be undertaken.
And then you also talked about additional data collection that could take place for the underpass.
Perhaps more observations, maybe some form of a conflict study.
But you didn't grab this data.
Excuse me?
You didn't grab this data.
I did not.
And why not?
That would be something that I would envision being part of the additional investigation of the location.
Had you run an auto turn model and it showed vehicles could pass safely under this underpass, you'd be required to testify to that, correct?
If I ran an auto turn and I saw the vehicles could, when you say safely, they don't obstruct one another and they have a little bit of a margin. If I ran the auto turn model and I would have to testify to that.
But because you didn't run that model, you can't testify to whether or not what that model might show, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, I want to come back to the bus stop issue. Based on the documents you showed me, I did not admit any of them in evidence. But can you pull up that bus stop map again? Attached to your petition to intervene was a different map, one that shows the location of bus stops. Let me just look at the exhibit. Give me a second. Davis, attached in your petition to intervene, something called Gloucester Public Schools Bus Stop Map Exhibit 1.
Yes.
That purports to show locations of school bus stops, and it shows industrial park entrance.
Correct.
Okay, where did you get that?
The map was taken from MapLine and all of the red dots dropped on it. The data was taken from the Gloucester Public Schools Transportation website and the Cape Ann Transportation Authority's website.
I'm not seeing data, I'm just seeing that map.
Correct. At the time when I had submitted it, this was my request to be an intervener where I was, unclear on how much data to provide backup to.
Okay. Because the existence or non-existence and the location of bus stops should be a matter of public record, and it may matter to the board one way or the other, I'm going to allow you to go back to this exhibit or this document.
Mr. Greer, can I see a copy of this document? Because I have her petition for intervention.
For all the signatures,
Oh,
the
okay.
the top of the page is school bus routes, but then below that is a map.
I have a one-page from Laura.
We're going to put
Okay,
the
hold on.
map, we're going to put the map on this up on the screen so everybody can see it. Ms. Davis, while Ms. Hurley's putting that up, you said you got it from MapLine.
Yeah,
What is that?
it was an online service that allowed you to drop pins along a charted route.
It's not a city
No,
site.
no, it's just a basic GIS website where you can drop a pin on a specific address. So for example, if there's a bus stop at Laurel where it intersects, that's where you would put it. And in no way am I trying to say that it is 100% perfect to the latitude and longitude, it's more to prove that there are in fact bus stops along Magnolia Avenue.
Nobody's requiring that much precision. I am thinking about the basic reliability of the data. All right, there's the map. Forget the text on the top for the moment. There, the gray square in the middle is the industrial park entrance. And I think the bus stops of interest, one way or the other, are the two just to the upper right of that.
And the one down on the bottom. Sorry, on the top of the page.
Okay.
Yes, because that in effect is where the bridge is. The underpass.
Any objection to putting this map, just the map, in evidence?
Yes.
Ground?
That she is not qualified to produce plans. All the plans we submitted were stamped by engineers. She's allegedly taking data from multiple sources and compiling them into a visual and stating, that these things exist where they exist. I'm not looking for latitude and longitude to the thousands of a degree, but again, she's in no way qualified. This should have come in through expert testimony as a plan developed.
Well, it's a simpler matter than needing necessarily a registered professional engineer.
Or if it was substantiated, if she'd produced a map that was produced by an authority and someone could substantiate that, yes, this is, or we could even navigate to it. So yeah, well, here's the URL where I pulled this, but this is something she has created and drawn herself.
So let me understand that. You got the base map from map line?
Yes.
And then where did you get the bus stop information?
The Gloucester Public Schools website transportation page has all of the bus routes available for download. It was taken from there. They're the 2024, 2025 school bus routes.
And that,
Also charted on the map are the CADA bus routes that are linked with the Gloucester High School. Therefore, taking from the CADA bus page, which links through the Gloucester Public Schools page.
okay, but the bus stops shown here are school bus stops, not CADA bus stops, right?
The CADA bus also serves as a school bus for high school students.
You said it shows routes. Does the Gloucester, the city information show bus stop location?
It does. It shows the times and the intersection of the address where it is. So for example, it would say 26 Magnolia Avenue.
And then you figured out where 26 Magnolia Avenue is and put it on there?
Yes.
And what's the address of the lowest of the 3 bus stops that we were talking about?
I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to pull it up
Okay.
unless I can look at.
Do you have the addresses of all 3 of them?
They're all available on these, so I don't have them in front of me.
Okay.
I mean, I have them in front of me now.
Go ahead.
What constitutes an expert?
Well, we're not going to have a general discussion on that now.
But is someone who allows their children to be on a bus traveling that route and make those stops considered an expert?
No, no.
No?
An expert is somebody who by expertise, training, education, experience is more qualified than the average person to testify about a subject.
Got it. Okay.
That's not to say parents don't have their own spheres of expertise, but they would not be considered experts based on that.
So one of the
So
stop,
hang-
okay.
Hang on, I'm trying to be as lenient as I can be under the rules that we're operating under. If it's City of Gloucester data, that's fine. The base map seems okay, but it's where you place the bus stops that seems to be the question. If we don't have an address, we have only your word at the moment that those 3 dots correspond to information on the city website. So if you could at least find those addresses and give them, then people can figure out whether they think that's right or not.
Sure. So the one next to the square indicating where the industrial park is 220 Magnolia Avenue.
Okay?
Okay. The next one. Thanks.
While you're looking, Mr. Hazavardian, you're going to stay for the rest of the evening, or are you going to leave when your questioning is done? I don't even want to go there. I guess if you're going to stick around, then I'm not going to put Ms. Davis on the spot necessarily. She can look at the break for this information if you'll be available after the break for more questioning on this if necessary. But I understand that you charge for your time, and I'm not telling you that you have to stay.
Sorry, I have another one. Sorry.
My opinions would be limited to the amount of time I've had to look at this. So they'd be
Okay.
very back of the envelope opinions.
Okay. Meaning if you were asked to assume the location of certain bus stops, you have not had time to figure out the implications of that for your opinions.
Well, I'd have questions. Do the students wait right by the side of the road? Are they on the inside of a curve, the outside of a curve? Are there
All right.
grades there and so on?
All right. Do you have all 3 now?
Yeah, so the other one is Essex and Magnolia Avenue. No, that's another Magnolia one, sorry. Um, 249 Magnolia Avenue. So 220, 249.
Top one.
Yep. And then the last one is a CADA bus, which is the GHS bus, not just a, local public transportation option, is Essex Ave and Magnolia Ave.
I renew my objection. If those are the reported addresses of bus stops, she has incorrectly identified them on that map if they're supposed to correlate with those three. Again, I'm not here to testify, but the last two addresses she gave do not line up with those pins.
All right. There's two things going on here. One is whether the witness can testify based on any assumption about bus stops. The witness has said basically he wouldn't have any developed testimony on the, at the moment. He hasn't had time to do anything on this issue,
I could just give general conceptual type answers.
which
Mr. Krieger, in the
the second thing that's going on is whether this document can be introduced in evidence, and then people can just make an argument about how close the bus stops are, how far they are, or whatever. That's where we are now. I'm not going to allow more questioning of Mr. Hazavardian on this issue. Go ahead.
At this point, in the interest of keeping the hearing moving, I am happy to have this removed and not put forward as evidence, and possibly having the opportunity after this meeting to submit direct prints from Cape Ann Transportation Authority's high school run and the Gloucester Public School runs onto the record.
Okay. Mention. Yep. Okay, so this proposed exhibit's withdrawn. You can offer in evidence any additional document that you want. The sooner you circulate it to other parties, the less they may be prejudiced by the timing of this, because the document should have been identified a while ago. But I'll let you do it based, as I said, for this, what seems to be a straightforward matter of public record. Where are the bus stops in Gloucester on this street? So I'm not going to allow testimony about it. There could be closing argument about it, or comments by the public. But after the break or any other time, well, not after the break, we'll probably be moving on to other witnesses. You can offer that at the next hearing on June 3rd. I'm not saying I'm going to admit it. Let's see what the objections are, and let's see what the basis of the data is. What I heard tonight is a question about these dots. If I'm persuaded that whatever you come back with is sufficiently reliable from the city website or anything else, I may allow it.
Understood. Thank you.
Reliability of the evidence and prejudice to other parties on the timing are the two things I'm looking at. But if you want to try, sure. Okay. With that, it's almost 5 o'clock. We are going to start the next witness, Mr. Hazavardian. I believe you're done for now. Thank you. The next witness would probably won't do 5 minutes worth if we're breaking at 5. Is it Mr. Ostler or?
Yes, Doug Ostler.
Okay. All right. How long do you think your direct will be? Any idea?
I'd say 20 minutes would be my hope.
All right. You think 10 minutes for the flag ceremony, more or less?
It'll be a little bit longer than that, but however long you want to break is appropriate.
Well, I don't want to cut into that if we can help it.
No.
If we come back at 5:15.
Sure.
All right. We're gonna break 5 minutes early just because it doesn't make sense to start a witness for 5 minutes. There will be a flag raising ceremony, so the break is going to be a few minutes longer than usual, but come back at 5:15, please, and we'll start Mr. Ostler promptly then. If there are any other documents or exhibit issues that I need to think about over the next 5 minutes, I'm happy to do that. Okay, hearing nothing, we're on a break. Thank you. All Let's see.
Hey, just so you know, there's a flag raising going on downstairs for Pride Day. So if you want to go down, the mayor's going to have a proclamation and everything.
Opened. It's a while ago. Yeah, it was May 7 or so. The hearing opened on May Joel, you set? Okay. Thanks for being reasonably prompt, everybody, to get back here. Mr. Durning, you're on with direct examination of Mr. Osler.
Thank you very much. Again, Peter Durning, attorney for the Board of Health. Could you state your name for the record?
Douglas Osler,
And what firm do you work for?
Weston Sampson.
And can you describe your educational background?
I have my bachelor's and master's in civil engineering, and I have roughly 13 years of varied transportation traffic engineering experience.
And you included a resume in with your pre-filed testimony?
Yes, sir.
Great. And what has been your involvement with the EWS application for Citus 24 Kondelin Road?
My task as assigned by Weston Sampson was to review the Tetra Tech traffic impact assessment, as well, both the original submission and some responses to comments and some clarifications, as well as recently the TEP LLC memorandum. I had assisted in the preparation of the comment responses provided by Weston Sampson to the Board of Health regarding the Tetra Tech study. I did not have the time, I did not get to submitting any official comments regarding the TEP LLC, but I was able to submit the sworn testimony.
Great, thank you. In your pre-filed testimony, you have a section discussing levels of service. You note that the Tetra Tech traffic study indicates that all movements at the study intersections operate at LOS or level of service D. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did the level of service study intersections that are contained in the Tetra Tech traffic impact access study include a review of the underpass on Magnolia Avenue near the intersection with Laurel Street?
No, it did not, and it would not be appropriate for as it is not an intersection.
Did it include the intersection between Magnolia and Laurel?
No, it did not.
In your pre-filed testimony discussing crash analysis, there's a discussion of the crash analysis at Magnolia Avenue and Western Avenue. Is that from a portion of Magnolia Street where there is a 2.5 ton weight limit?
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
In your testimony, there's a discussion of the crash analysis at Magnolia Avenue and Western Avenue, but is that from a portion of Magnolia Avenue, pardon me, where there is a 2.5 ton weight limit?
It's my understanding that the southwestbound approach of Magnolia Avenue has the weight limit, but the other segment of Magnolia side does not have a weight limit.
Okay. And on page 6 of your testimony, you discuss additional crash data in the vicinity of the railroad underpass. Is that correct?
I would believe you, but I cannot verify it according to my memory at the moment.
Okay, maybe I don't have you don't need to know it by the page number, but in your pre-filed testimony, did you include a discussion of crash data near the Magnolia underpass?
Yes.
And what was the source of that information?
I retrieved that data from the MassDOT portal crash inquiry website.
Did you obtain any other crash data?
No.
On page 5 of your pre-filed direct testimony, you stated, vehicles are not unimpeded as they may slow or stop as part of negotiating the underpass and curve. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Can you explain or describe your statement that the vehicles are not unimpeded? What is the, can you elaborate on that?
Mhm. I used the phrasing "not unimpeded" as that was the phrasing that was in the TEP LLC memorandum. My interpretation of that memorandum, the wording in that was that vehicles, at times when opposing vehicles would be approaching and/or pedestrians, a vehicle may need to slow and not be free-flowing. Slow or stop, I'll clarify.
That's a helpful description. Thank you. If a
Mr.
vehicle,
Durning, I'm sorry. I need to make sure I'm understanding the pre-filed testimony correctly. This is Exhibit 11. We're on page 5. Vehicles are not unimpeded as they approach the underpass, or they are unimpeded?
I believe the wording was "not unimpeded." Negative for,
TEP said the width is not sufficient to provide unimpeded movement of vehicles. And you said vehicles are not unimpeded.
correct?
So okay. So slowing or stopping as part of negotiating is a form of impediment?
Correct.
Okay,
That was my interpretation of the wording.
okay, thank you.
great, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. To follow up on that point, Mr. Osler, does the impediment you described where a vehicle may have to slow or stop, does that in and of itself constitute a danger to public safety?
It would depend on the context.
Can you provide a context where it did and a context where it did not constitute a danger?
Yes. I would say we'd say in busier locations where higher speeds are expected and the drivers do not have an expectation to need to make any sudden speed changes due to any number of conflicts. There would be more risk or concern for conflicts on higher speed roadways where it's not expected versus, for example, a local road where you may have much more windy roads and crossing pedestrians and et cetera.
And in this specific context of the underpass on Magnolia Avenue, if vehicles have to slow or potentially stop to navigate that area, do you believe that that constitutes a danger to public safety?
I think there can be compelling arguments made either way. I would hesitate to make a definitive statement regarding the word safety in this location. One way or the other.
And in your testimony on pages 5 and 6, you talk about factors of information that you identify, including no dedicated bike, pedestrian sidewalks, the strength of street lights on both sides of the underpass, classification as a collector road, lack of turning diagrams, frequency of one additional new truck every 4 minutes, and infrequency of traffic crash occurrences. How do these factors play into your assessment of the extent to which this area, the underpass on Magnolia Avenue, could constitute a danger to public safety?
May I clarify on the question? Are you wanting each specific one or a general response?
General is fine, but if you can incorporate them, that's also fine.
Yeah, all of those items I listed, I felt were appropriate to provide context for the members of the Board of Health in consideration for whether they deem it upon their authority to determine whether it is safe or not. And I am happy to provide clarifying insight as an expert witness and how those relate to safety and appropriateness of conditions of the site.
Well, that sounds important. Why don't we tick through them then? What about the concern that there's no dedicated bike or pedestrian or sidewalks?
That particular one, there was two parts to that. One was the site suitability requirements, as indicated by the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency. That specifically lists pedestrian and bicyclist activity. The second one was that the second point I bring for that was that the TEPA LLC specifically mentioned that there were no pedestrian and bicyclist infrastructure. So as part of my review, I felt it appropriate to address that.
What about the existence of streetlights on both sides of the underpass?
That is related to, I would say, pedestrian safety going underneath the bridge and assisting providing illumination and visual contrast for objects, persons, pedal cyclists, etc., underneath the bridge for approaching vehicles to better recognize that something is there and potentially a conflict area.
What about the classification as a collector road?
As alluded to previously, in the context of roads, there may be areas, I shouldn't say areas, there may be situations that are more acceptable for expecting stops on local roads, for example, where there's an expectation of lower speeds and potential changes in alignment and grade and people, cars, whereas a higher classification such as arterial roadway, it would be less appropriate to have sudden changes in speed necessary upon the recognition of the driver.
What about your point regarding the lack of turning tracking diagrams?
I would think that it is appropriate to, when considering making statements about whether vehicles can pass through the underpass unimpeded, particularly with the range of heavy vehicles that are proposed by the site, including semi-tractor trailers versus flatback heavy trucks or pedestrian vehicles and commuting. It may be worth considering, is there a size of vehicle that can make the turn unimpeded and won't encroach into the opposing lane versus what size of vehicle would encroach upon an opposing lane?
What about the data point you note about the frequency of additional one new truck every 4 minutes?
This one is interesting. There's two sides to this one, I would say. On one side, there would be an argument to say that volume on Magnolia Avenue is so low that the relative change in risk or existing risk of existing traffic volumes would point to, well, I'll use the phrasing less exposure and potentially an acceptable situation. On the other hand, there is a potential that if there is so low of traffic, some drivers that are familiar with the road or perhaps not familiar with the road could potentially assume more risk by driving faster and being less attentive to road striping when it comes to winding curves and approach things in a less careful manner.
And the last point you referenced was infrequency of crash occurrences. What's the significance of that?
Looking at crash data is a way of collecting empirical data to argue whether there is a history of, I don't really want to say the word danger, but whether there's a history of accidents that could point to whether a situation is appropriate or acceptable, depending on the types of collisions that are seen.
And so is it your testimony that all of these factors are things that can and should be considered when evaluating the potential for danger to public safety at this location?
I do. It adds to the context that I believe should be considered.
Top of page 5 in your testimony, you acknowledged TEP's statement, quote, "The underpass width is about 22 feet, which is not sufficient to provide unimpeded movement of vehicles, including heavy vehicles and other road users, including bicycles, pedestrians, particularly those traveling in opposite directions." You acknowledge that that statement is accurate, but then you provide the context and claim that vehicles are not unimpeded as they may slow or stop. Do you, again, with respect to your review of the TEP assessment, do you believe that their TEP's observation demonstrates that the area is a danger to public safety?
There are several things in that statement. I would clarify for my statement that I did not verify the TEP LLC statement, but did not have any reason to disagree with it. Regarding the question you asked, I apologize. Would you please repeat that?
I think it's okay. I think you had addressed it earlier, so that's okay.
Okay.
But does TEP's failure to provide vehicle or truck turn tracking diagrams refute its conclusion that the 22-foot width of the underpass would impede movement in certain circumstances?
I think the truck turning movements would go towards verifying for public information. However, I believe expert opinions of myself as well as the engineer would be adequate in providing opinion of what would be expected.
Is the concern about vehicles being able to negotiate the turn without blocking the traffic through the Magnolia underpass the only concern about whether or not the underpass will constitute a danger to public safety?
I believe there would be more
What,
consideration just to that.
what other public safety concerns could be present?
I think an important factor would be the sight distance, for approaching drivers to be able to see that there is an opposing vehicle approaching in order to make the decision whether they need to slow down or perhaps all the way yield. There'd be need to have enough, I say distance, sight visibility for distance in order to be able to perceive, react, and slow down as necessary.
Did you make any assessment of the site distance as a factor for the safety at the Magnolia Avenue underpass?
Informally, I looked at an aerial photograph, but I did not take physical measurements that would be required for an engineering evaluation.
Do you draw any conclusions from the aerial photograph?
I would say I drew suspicions, but not a conclusion.
Can you elaborate that concern?
I am unclear about what I am able to provide in evidence. Could I get clarification on how much my opinion would go towards versus what I did not measure?
You said you looked at an aerial, you didn't take any measurements, and then I think you were asked whether you have an opinion, you said you have a suspicion. I haven't heard an objection to any of that. Are you, so I guess you can answer the next question. What's your suspicion? I may or may not.
I would not be
Get it.
surprised if there was.
Actually, before you do that, let me clarify. All expert witnesses should testify to a reasonable degree of professional certainty in their field. If it's mere conjecture, if it's assumption, if it's hypothesis, if it's suspicion, that is not sufficiently probative for the board. Do you have an opinion based on your, whatever examination you made of site distances? Do you have an opinion on traffic safety to a reasonable degree of professional certainty? And it's a yes question, but if you need to explain, go ahead.
The level of greenery and landscaping would affect that decision. So I would say I could not provide a conclusion for that.
Okay, that's fine. In the last paragraph on page 6 of your pre-filed direct testimony, you state that TEP's opinions or assertions are, quote, limited by the extent of its research, which do not necessarily match the standard of care considered by the city. What do you mean by the standard of care referenced in that section?
So in my opinion, safety at locations has a part in how the characteristics of roadways and affecting physical factors of that location. An aspect of safety also includes driver behavior, which can be different depending on general driver expectations and traffic conditions. So I use the term standard of care. It basically means what would be appropriate and what the city would feel is appropriate for the existing conditions, plus any potential safety measures to increase the safety at a particular location.
Is that standard of care informed by the current signage at a given location?
The signage could be part of a decision made by the city. Standard of care is more or less a judgment based on the contextual characteristics and historical observations at locations or at a location.
In that same paragraph on page 6 of your testimony, you state that Weston and Sampson, quote, does not agree that the wording in findings 7 and 8 from the TEP memo, as continuing with the quote, as it implies that the conditions are unsafe or inappropriate unless proven otherwise. In your field, do you generally presume that traffic conditions are safe or appropriate unless proven unsafe?
Would you repeat the question, please?
In your field of traffic analysis, do you generally presume that traffic conditions are safe or appropriate unless proven unsafe?
In the engineering profession, when we provide analysis and documents, it would be inappropriate to state whether something is safe without a reasonable degree of proof or consideration of factors that would deem it safe. Additionally, it would not be appropriate to indicate that something is unsafe without the same degree of care. So in short, I would not assume one way or another on whether a location is safe or not without looking at the broader context.
In your opinion, as a peer reviewer, has the applicant provided sufficient information in its traffic study and testimony to support a conclusion that the road conditions at the Magnolia Underpass are safe?
I would disagree based on the wording that is provided in the memorandum itself. If I recall correctly, the wording is the city cannot deem the location safe or acceptable. It's not exact wording, but approximately that. And that is based on, again, the memorandum's wording in the introduction that it is a limited investigation of,
Are you referring to the TEP memorandum?
yes.
All right, I think the question was, has the applicant submitted sufficient
Oh.
information, in your opinion, on which the board can find safety?
Objection. It's not one of the standards for the board to find.
I'll allow the question. I understand that may or may not be the standard, but that was the question, not the TEP memo.
Okay. My apologies. Would you repeat the questions just so I'm make sure I get this right?
Yeah, sorry, it was a compliment to the TEP issue insofar as they have said there's insufficient information. But my question to you was, in your opinion, has the applicant, EWS, included sufficient information in its traffic study and testimony to support a conclusion that the road conditions at the underpass are safe?
No, it's understanding that the Tetra Tech traffic assessment did not address the underpass in the report. So it did not state one way or the other regarding that location.
And have you formed an opinion regarding whether the road conditions at the underpass are safe?
Just, are you referring to today or with the project?
Sorry, with the project as proposed.
If asked, I would recommend to the Board of Health some mitigation considerations.
What would those be?
That location. One option to potentially be considered is signage as indicated as an option within the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices regarding narrow underpasses.
Is there a specific sign?
Yes, there is a sign specifically that says narrow underpass, and that may be used in a variety of circumstances, which I believe this instance would qualify for, provided an engineering statement regarding that, as well as in the next section after, I apologize, I don't recall the exact section, but there is a provision for a single lane underpass sign that would not be able to be placed in this location without restriping, obliterating the center double yellow stripe and adding shoulders to the roadway at the underpass.
You've mentioned two different potential mitigations. Signage indicating narrow underpass. Would you recommend that that be both northbound and southbound?
Yes, such signage would be on both approaches.
The second one you mentioned regarding signage designated single lane underpass would require additional engineering steps rather than just a sign, is that correct?
I would defer to the language within the manual um, as to the appropriateness of what is required.
Okay, just, during the cross-examination of Rob Woodland from Tetra Tech, there was some discussion about the Tetra Tech seasonal adjustment factor as applied to its traffic counts. Is there ever a time in your experience under best practices for traffic study that would apply a localized seasonal adjustment factor rather than a statewide adjustment factor?
Yes.
What would those circumstances be?
If I may preface slightly, the seasonal adjustment factors are averaged fairly generally by road classification, and there are some separate seasonal correction factors for specific locations. It may not be appropriate for all locations within the state of Massachusetts that it averages. I would say if there is significant impact due to tourism spots, potentially beaches, if you're close to that, places that have particularly heavy events are such locations that it would be worth considering depending on the type of traffic impact that is expected.
And would you have used such a localized seasonal adjustment factor in this traffic impact study?
If the data was readily available, it would be something that could be used. In this particular study, specific to this development, the resulting level of service from the traffic impact, from the intersection capacity analysis indicated relatively free-flowing, I shouldn't say free-flowing, relatively acceptable levels of service. I would not expect the relatively low trips generated by the proposed site to have a characteristically large impact that would be affected through the use of a seasonal factor based on the travel routes of the trips generated.
Great, thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. So I just want to start kind of where you ended. You were asked a few questions about safety of the underpass. And I want to just clarify the signage suggestions you provided. They were to improve the safety of the underpass?
In my opinion, it would help raise the awareness of approaching drivers that there may be instances that they are required to slow and or yield. If drivers were inattentive, that would be a level of risk. So the placement of the signage is an attempt to increase the awareness and reaction time of drivers.
Okay. In your pre-file testimony, you said you are familiar with 310 CMR 1640 and the traffic requirements of that?
I read it.
Okay. So again, the standard we're looking to is whether traffic impacts from the facility operation would constitute a danger to the public health, safety, or environment Do you believe that absent those signs, operation of this facility would create a danger to the public health, safety, or environment?
I believe that it would not have a large impact to the existing conditions and operations of this location.
Okay, but again, I can say even more simply, regardless of the sign suggestion, have you reviewed anything in connection with your testimony tonight that informs you operation of this facility would constitute a danger to public health, safety, and the environment based on traffic concerns?
I do not know if this would constitute evidence that is not included, but I viewed a video that showed a truck navigating through the bridge. In my opinion, it appeared to be traveling faster and crossing over the double yellow stripe more than it should have, with my expectation of what a CDL licensed driver should on the approach to that bridge.
So again, has anything submitted to this board or testified to it stand, prior to now? Is there anything that you've seen come through that would lead you to the opinion that operation of the facility would constitute a danger to public health, safety, and the environment?
The answer to that question is no.
Thank you. Are you familiar with MIPA review traffic thresholds?
Which threshold specifically?
What I'll refer to as the 150 trip per day. If the answer is no, the answer is no.
I'm aware of various thresholds. I'm less versed in the diesel threshold. I've used many times the average daily traffic through driveways, whether it's one specific driveway or multiple driveways.
Okay. That's fine. I'll move past that. So I just want to confirm you reviewed the entirety of Tetra Tech's traffic study?
I reviewed the entirety of the main body of the report and some pages of the appendix. I did not review the entire appendix.
Okay. While reviewing it, did you find any reason to dispute methodology or results being presented?
The comments that I had while reviewing it were addressed
Okay.
by the applicant.
So concerns you had previously have been addressed to your satisfaction as of today?
Of the content of that study, yes.
Okay. But otherwise, you have no reason to think that, the data is invalid or improperly collected or anything like that?
No.
Okay. And then my last question just relates to the peak hour traffic. Do you believe that the traffic data collected and the study performed is of a detail sufficient for 14 additional truck trips per peak hour?
The analysis was based off of data collection at another facility, and provided that data was accurate and good, the methodology looked sound, and I have no reason to question it.
I guess what I mean is, when it concludes, okay, peak hours, there'll be 14 extra truck trips, and, should that have set off alarms that, oh, we need to go down and really drill down and get more information? Or just say 14 new truck trips, the amount of study they've done is adequate?
For what was asked of the applicant, they provided a sound study. Due to the later awareness of the potential complications at the underpass, that wasn't specifically addressed in the report.
Just to clarify, have you been part of the Weston and Sampson review team on this matter from the inception, or were you just brought on recently for traffic rebuttal?
I reviewed the Tetra Tech report when it was submitted years ago, if I recall correctly.
And so at that time, did you raise any issues about the underpass on Magnolia Avenue?
No, I did not.
Were you aware of the underpass on Magnolia Avenue?
I was aware of the underpass.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Art, if
Okay.
I may just for a moment clarify that we do intend to call Brian McCormick on another subset of traffic issues, just to clarify that Tetra Tech did have multiple witnesses that were designated to talk about traffic. Just there may be some topics that are not in Doug's pre-filed testimony that are in Brian's. Just to,
Okay, when questions are asked like that, you can speak up and we'll defer to Brian.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll go down the row again with other cross-examination of Mr. Ostler.
Thank you, Mr. Ostler. Your last question you were asked regarding that you were made later aware of the complications of the underpass. Is my understanding that you did not, that underpass issue was not addressed in the initial traffic study done by Tetra Tech. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you were asked if you were aware of the underpass at the time, and when did you become aware of the underpass, and how did you become aware of the underpass?
For this particular peer review process, I did not visit the site location or the study intersections directly, but relied upon aerial photos and street view photos. I would have seen the underpass as part of my scan of Magnolia Avenue when I was reviewing the project location.
Now, you said that you relied on data that Tetra Tech provided from other facilities. What facility do they provide data from?
I do not recall at this time, but I believe it is entered, responded to within the evidence that has been submitted.
Is it your testimony that the specific name of the facility was introduced in the evidence? And if so, do you know where it was introduced?
If I can object, I think that's an area that Brian McCormick is going to address better than Mr. Ostler.
It was raised on direct examination.
I recall other facilities coming up in his direct.
He said data either received from other facilities, and they presume the data that were provided was valid, meaning what Weston and Sampson was provided from Tetra Tech.
I think that was in response to Joel, but yes, this statement was made.
Okay, then you can ask what other facilities he was talking about.
So my question is, do you recall the name of the facility or where the name of the facility is located in the documents that you reviewed?
I do not recall, no.
Do you know what state it was in?
I did not review that data within the evidence that was provided.
How was that facility similar to the applicant's proposed facility?
I would defer that question to Brian.
I want to go back to page 5 of your initial testimony. You stated up top that the underpass is about 22 feet, which is not sufficient to provide unimpeded movement of vehicles.
Objection.
He's quoting the TEP memo on that.
Correct.
but then he adopted it as well.
Okay, and I guess, I know you've been asked, but I'm not quite sure the answer. Then further down, you say vehicles are not unimpeded as they may slow or stop. Do you really mean that they are impeded? Because you go to give me a double negative?
I used the double negative as I responded earlier, as that double negative was used in the TEP LLC. My intent of the statement was to provide clarification on behalf of the, excuse me, not on behalf, for information for the Board of Health to assist in clarifying the meaning of the statement based on my interpretation.
All right, is your interpretation, I guess my bottom line is your interpretation that vehicles are impeded because they have to stop or slow down to go under that underpass?
The statement that I made, I believe I was saying I did not disagree with TEP LLC's statement. Did not personally make that statement
Okay.
in my testimony. I'll clarify.
Now, I believe you stated you were never out, you were physically never inspected the bridge, is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
Did you,
At the time, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Have you ever physically inspected the bridge?
I drove through the bridge in both directions. I did not exit the vehicle to perform more detailed inspections or observations or measuring the width of the bridge.
And when did you drive through the bridge?
I drove through it prior to last week's meeting.
Okay, approximately what time of the day was it?
Approximately 6:30, give or take 15 minutes.
Okay, did you go one way or both ways?
I exited Route 113 and went from Essex into Mongolia Avenue and through to the proposed site. And then I returned in the opposite direction, as well as making a detour on Magnolia Avenue to, sorry, I'm not recalling the name of the other study intersection, the end of the
Western
weight
Avenue?
limit.
Was it Western Avenue?
I believe so, yes.
Now, based on your observations of the bridge, of the underpass, can you make a determination that there's not a risk to the public health and safety, specifically as the bridge is currently constructed and as the underpass is currently constructed and utilized?
I would say the context of that question requires consideration of the history of crash data and behavior, as that plays a part into safety of a location and not just the physical characteristics of the roadway.
So I guess my question is, can you make a determination either yes or no without that crash data?
I believe there's more information that I would like to have before making a definitive statement.
Okay. Did you make it, you were talked about in your letter about lights. Do you know what the wattage was of the lights that are on the underpass or on either side?
I'm sorry, some of that I did not hear through the speaker.
Raise it. You stated in your written statement that Magnolia Avenue provides luminary streetlights on both sides of the underpass. But you didn't physically observe those lights in operation when you went through, did you?
That's correct. I did not observe them active.
So you don't know how effective those lights would have been in the dark on that underpass?
I would not be able to make a statement even seeing that, because that area of specificity in your question would require calculations of a lighting analysis. That is typically done by, well, it can be done by highway engineers, but is often also done by electrical engineers and environmental engineers.
But wouldn't illumination have an impact on this, on the safety of a roadway?
Yes,
And one of your duties is determination of the safety of the roadway, is that correct?
I'm sorry, say it again?
One of your duties as an engineer, in this case, is determine the safety of that roadway that goes under the underpass. Is that correct?
If making an engineering study for that location, yes.
Okay. And I believe you testified that the applicant did not make a traffic study for that underpass.
I would say the content of the question is true. I do not believe I used that wording.
Okay. Now, you talked about sight distances. You know what the sight distance is going southbound?
I did not measure it.
Okay. And is it a straight road going southbound from on Magnolia Avenue through the underpass, or does it curve?
There's a substantial curve prior to the underpass. I do not recall whether it switches to the other direction at or prior to the underpass.
Okay. And you drove it southbound, is that correct?
I drove both directions.
What observations do you make when you're going southbound as you made that curve to the underpass?
My personal observation,
Yes.
which I would not constitute expert witness to the degree that I observed it, I was surprised on how close the underpass was with regard to my ability prior to, I'm sorry, my wording is bad for that. I was surprised on the approach, as I did not see it as soon as I would have expected.
Okay. Would that be further impacted by either fog or snow or rain?
It could, depending on the intensity, yes.
Okay. Did you make any observations regarding the drainage of that underpass?
I did not. I believe my review of the TEP LLC memorandum did not require it, as it did not make a substantive claim about it other than that drainage grates existed.
Okay. You were asked in direct,
May I clarify that question? I believe the memorandum also indicated that there may have been reports of flooding, but did not substantiate or provide any proof thereto.
okay, you also talked about in your memorandum that the MassDOT crash data that had 2 accidents, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you inquire of any local accident reports from the City of Gloucester Police Department?
No,
Did you request or inquire of any anecdotal information from the Gloucester Police Department regarding accidents?
no.
Now, you stated in paragraph page 6 that the opinions and assertions by TEP LLC limited by the extent of the research which do not necessarily match the standard of care considered by the city. What is the standard of care that should be provided to the city?
Um,
I'm sorry, what standards should be considered by the city?
um, a review of pertinent contextual characteristics of the location.
Now, you aware that Mr. Azabardian's memo, which I believe you read, May 12th, 2025 memo,
Yes, I read it.
that his emphasis was on raising issues that the city should look into. Is that correct?
It could be interpreted that way.
Do you interpret it a different way?
I don't recall any statements indicating the assertion that the city should do a more detailed analysis.
When is the last time you looked at the May 12th, 2025 memorandum of TEP LLC?
I believe it was last week.
Are you familiar with the final finding on page 3 of that memorandum?
The final finding,
The,
page
fi-
3?
the final statement.
I do not recall at this moment.
If I tell you what it said, accordingly, TEP LLC recommends that the city seeks full information on the adequacy of the underpass and nearby Magnolia Avenue under existing and future conditions. Would that refresh your memory?
I don't have reason to doubt you. I believe that.
Now, you were asked about seasonal data. And I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that local beach traffic would have a significant impact on seasonal data? Am I correct or am I wrong?
Yes, if it's seasonal, it would be a source of seasonal data.
And did you review the traffic impact and access study dated February 15, 2023, submitted by TEP LLC, Tetra Tech?
If it's the traffic impact and access study that is submitted in evidence, yes, I reviewed that.
And they list Essex Avenue, Route 133 at Concord Street as a significant intersection, do they not?
Would you define significant intersection?
Well, it's one of the 10 that they've listed.
Yes, it was included in the study.
Okay. And are you familiar with a geographical area known as Wingershik Beach?
I am not familiar with the beach. I am familiar with the route the projected traffic is distributed on Essex Street past that intersection, well, through the intersection past Concord Street.
So familiar that if you go on Concord Street northbound from 128, you go into Wingershik Beach?
I'm not familiar with the beach or its location.
If you were made aware that Wingershik Beach is a major seasonal area, would that something you wouldn't want to see addressed in the study?
For this particular study that only has through movements on Essex Street, I would not think, I would be surprised if the seasonal changes would interact with the level of trips that are generated through the intersection.
Okay, but when you reviewed all these documents, you were not aware of Wingershik Beach or the location of it, were you?
Correct.
Did you make any, or strike that, did you see any census or a test regarding pedestrian traffic or bicycle traffic on Magnolia Avenue between Kondelin Road and Essex Avenue?
I do not recall seeing any. If it was not within the Tetra Tech study or the TEP LLC study, I would confidently say that I did not.
No, you discussed the lack of vehicle truck turning diagrams to support TEP LLC's memorandum, is that correct?
I noted that it did not include it, correct?
Okay. Once you discovered that the underpass complicated the applicant's traffic study,
Objection.
Can you rephrase that?
well, I believe you testified that later you were made aware of the complications of the underpass. Is that a fair representation of your testimony?
Reasonably fair, yes.
In light of the fact that you were made later aware would have, and that Tetra Tech had not done a traffic study on that issue, when it be advisable to request Tetra Tech to do a vehicle truck tracking diagram?
All right, I'm not objecting, but I'd like to have Mr. Nestor just repeat the question.
That's fine. I have no problem doing that. In light of the fact that you testified that you were later made aware of the complications at the underpass and that Tetra Tech's prior studies did not address the underpass, would it have made sense to request Tetra Tech to conduct vehicle truck turn tracking at that location?
The answer to that is slightly more complex, so I apologize if it's a slightly longer answer. To start with the question, the engineer who performed the study, according to the report, was not made aware of any concern by the city when discussing the scope of the study, according to the wording of the report. The engineer also testified in a prior hearing that he had driven the location multiple times on his own and did not feel that it was an issue. Based on those circumstances, it would be reasonable not to necessarily include it in the study unless there was a known issue or potential known issue that is desired to be studied. That being said, a truck turning template would be appropriate for relatively slower moving trucks that are attempting to stay within their lane and encroach as less as possible. If on the circumstance that trucks are traveling quickly, that introduces a larger influence of momentum on the truck that changes the ability for the truck to make as tight of turns as possible, as well as the ability for the driver to turn the steering wheel at a certain speed relative to the distance traveled. So it gets complicated as truck turning movements get more complicated as speeds increase, and it's becomes more of an enforcement and behavior risk consideration for safety as opposed to a capacity form of safety and capability.
But I believe your testimony on direct was that you when you drove through it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you observed a truck going the other way, which crossed over the median line.
That was not correct.
Then I
I
withdraw.
did
the
not
question.
observe a truck while I was driving.
Then I withdraw the question. Thank you. How would the requirement of one of your proposed remediations or mitigations with signage and also potentially designating it as a single lane under the underpass, how would that impact on traffic?
A goal of installing those signs would be to make approaching drivers aware of a condition that they may have to slow down, and the increase in awareness and focus on the road ahead would have the goal to drive safer and perhaps approach at a more appropriate speed.
But I believe your second remediation suggestion was a single lane restriction. So my question is, if there in fact was a single lane restriction, if the city did in fact follow up on your recommendation, how would that impact on the traffic?
If only a single vehicle is approaching, it could be reasonable to expect that vehicle, upon seeing the signage, to approach more, to decelerate on the approach and verify with their eyes that they are able to enter the underpass without a conflicting vehicle. If there are approaching vehicles from either side, the drivers would need to determine based on their driving and approaches who would have the right of way and the other vehicle would yield.
Mr. Nestor, I need to clarify something. I'm sorry. You said you would recommend a narrow underpass sign pursuant to the MUTCD, the manual on traffic control devices, right?
That's an option.
But you would not recommend a one-lane underpass sign or making it one lane. Were you recommending that second type of sign as well?
I would
Or actually making
recommend
it one?
consideration for that sign as a separate option, but that would require lane striping and addition of shoulder striping.
So are you recommending that it be made one lane or that there be a sign about one lane underpass?
I think there are multiple options to be considered, and I would support a recommendation for those options, including the one you.
Including making it one lane?
Yes, I believe that would be. I believe upon additional review, that would likely be an acceptable safety improvement to mitigate concerns about sight distance approaching the underpass.
Okay. That's not how I understood your testimony before, so now I understand Mr. Nestor's question. Go ahead, Mark.
I have no further questions.
Okay, next, Ms. Rashane.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to go back to your comments around state versus local seasonal adjustment factors. I think you mentioned that if data locally were readily available, it would be best practice to use that. Is that correct? As opposed to state averages.
Yeah, if the data was available and I was aware of it, it would be very appropriate, yes.
I know some questions have already been asked related to Winter Chic Beach. I think you said that you wouldn't expect seasonal changes to be affected by the traffic to this proposed facility. what volume of traffic would potentially be affected? I mean, what's the threshold?
I would push back. I don't believe I said that wording, so I'm going to clarify for understanding. If variation, substantial variation, seasonal traffic occurs regarding that beach and traffic along Concord Road, it would certainly affect delays and resulting level of service of vehicles, particularly the stop controlled vehicles that have to wait for traffic on Essex Street. Because the proposed developments projected trips are along Essex, and because of the relatively low trip generation that is expected, the difference that specifically the project will make to the traffic, whether it's seasonally adjusted one way or another, would likely have not very much meaningful impact to the results of the to the traffic impact analysis. The traffic impact, I said that wrong. The intersection capacity analysis. Intersection capacity analyses are often, we'll do a no build condition and a build condition and compare the two. So with the addition of the site and the type of movements through that intersection, I wouldn't expect that there would be a significant change in level of service. Whether if you change a seasonal factor one way, both analyses are going to change this way and that way, but there's not a huge separation of the two. I hope that clarifies it.
Thank you, it does. So, but you're referring specifically to the intersection, but I guess my question is just more general. So taking the entirety of the route from 128 onto the facility and how that might be similar to the route that's taken by beach traffic all the way along Essex Avenue. I guess my question is, should that be considered, that local data ideally be considered as part of the analysis?
It could be, but my expectation of a change of impact would be the same as I answered. The intersection capacity analysis affects one form of safety, and I think what's being addressed much of tonight is a different form of safety regarding driver behavior and encroachment.
Thank you. And another question, if local data were to be used in that adjustment factor, would that ever include bicycles? Like, for example, if there were a coastal bicycle route that was heavily used in the summer, is that something that would make sense to include in that factor?
It would be difficult to apply a seasonal factor without having, I mean, vehicles and bicyclists are, I would say, in a beach setting, seasonal factors could vary prominently. And so there's a degree of accuracy that would be considered. When applying those types of factors, it is generally towards volume analysis that goes into intersection capacity analyses.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. You're all set?
Hi, Wendy Hansberry. I wanted to ask you, you had, and I think you said it outright, that the amount of trips was, did you use the word not significant or was like, what makes the determination of like a lot or traffic or like volume? Like where are the thresholds in there, please?
I appreciate the disconnect from someone who's done hundreds, many hundreds of traffic studies and reviewed many more. Um, I would just, I can't put a number on it because there are, depending on whether there's more turning movements one direction, it can have different effects. And so there isn't like a magical number X that I can point to. But I will say that in general, the proposed development, the specific trips generated by the site is at a level that's often results in little change from a no build condition to a build condition when regarding intersection capacity analysis.
Okay, so, and we're talking about that under 150 trips, is that sort of the, I think it's 136 trips is, or 140. So that doesn't necessarily, I'm trying to paraphrase what you're saying instead of asking you a question. My question is, are there common factors that we would look at when it comes to like traffic change that would be common here in this sort of residential industrial area?
The concept of level of service, as my understanding is that it was a various threshold, a rating system intended to provide an ease of comparing conditions A and B versus B type of thing. So that a change in level of service rating would be indicative of impact, and judging how much the rating changes is a larger impact or lesser impact.
Okay, and
So I think he's given his opinion, and I don't want to get into more of a tutorial on level of service analysis. There is a whole part of a profession devoted to that. I'm also mindful of how many people have cross-examined on traffic and of Manchester by the Sea's interest in intervening. I want to finish this witness in the next 10 minutes if we can, so that we can clear out for the zoning board hearing. Maybe we can't. I don't know who else has more questions, but I think we're done with that line of questioning. Do you have anything else? Okay, I appreciate that. That was not, again, I'm not intending to be critical of anyone. Everybody's working hard at this. All right, but that brings us back to any redirect. But first, I think Mr. Rosa, Chairman Rosa had a question.
Brief question. From your expertise and familiarity with the site, in addition to signage, would favorable consideration be given to putting up a reflector or a mirror-like surface to extend the sight line around the corner?
I would respond to the mirror as doubtful, as that would require specific focus on a small object from where the driver's perspective is, and attempting to view a change in what the mirror is displaying, and would be difficult to see unless the driver is stopped. It does help in stop conditions where you're trying to see difficult locations. The reflectors are generally helpful for awareness, particularly around curves. Yeah.
Durning, redirect.
Thank you, Art. Mr. Osler You provided testimony about the possibility of having a narrow underpass sign or a single lane designation at the Magnolia Avenue underpass. Would either of those measures, the narrow underpass or the single lane designation, be sufficient to mitigate any impact from the proposed facility so it would not constitute a danger to public health, safety, and the environment?
I think those potential conditions would mostly address the existing site visibility of drivers approaching and would mitigate both existing and potential future trips generated by the proposed site.
And in the absence of either the narrow underpass sign or a single lane designation, in the absence of either of those, would the proposed EWS facility constitute a danger to public health or safety?
I don't think it would have an impact in that way, no.
Thank you. That's all I have.
You recross.
I can get it done. Yeah. So I can get it done in the next 4 minutes if that's okay. So I just honestly, being candid partially for myself, I want to just make sure we clarification. There was a lot of talk about Concord beach traffic. I want to make sure that I'm understanding your testimony. We talk about level of service and the impact that a local adjustment may or may not have on the analysis. So you looked at the
Is this just recross from my redirect?
It's based on what was
As we talked.
twice by another.
It's
Okay.
from everybody.
Okay.
How much do you have? Because I want to.
Literally 1.5 questions.
Go ahead.
I promise. I'm really done.
1.5. that's
1.5.
so-
Let's not answer the first one.
Objection to the half, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we'll see. Okay, so what I'm just trying to get to is you examined the traffic study produced. It showed you a build and no build condition. You found those figures to be similar. The calculations, the build and no build conditions were of a similar nature.
Yes.
Right. And so your testimony is with regard to this beach traffic, if 2,000 cars show up to go to Winger Street Beach one day, whether it's build or no build, any detriment to the level of service of that intersection is going to happen, you know, with the same detriment to that intersection's level of service, regardless of whether it's a build or no build condition.
I would expect that would be the case.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Nestor? Any questions by anyone else? All right. Thanks for your cooperation in finishing this witness. I think you're done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have to be out of here in a few minutes. It'll take us a few minutes to clean up and make it ready for the ZBA, which starts at 7. So we're going to stop now. Let me just tell you what we're doing next time. I sent out an email yesterday that next time we're going to start with an hour of public comment. And again, I will urge members of the public to adopt each other's comments, to rely on the written comments if they've submitted any. But we'll give an hour to public comment. Depending on the number of people, that's going to mean maybe limiting the time of each speaker. But we'll see what we have. Who else is testifying? We have Mr. Hale. We have an owner of Eastern. We have Mr. McCormick. Is anyone else hoping or intending to testify under oath, as opposed to the questioning that you've been doing so far? Well, if the letter's been submitted, the board has it, correct?
That is already part.
All letters, they're not part of the record of the hearing. And as I said at the beginning, it's a little unclear. The board can't really rely on information or data submitted in a letter that's not tested by cross-examination or admitted in evidence at this hearing. They're basing their decision on the record of this hearing, which is the testimony and the exhibits. And so far we have 13 exhibits. But letters expressing public concern, one sec, letters expressing public concern, and urging them to do one thing or another, those are fair game. If again, if it's specific data or information, I'll leave it to council to advise the board. I'm not advising the board, but I think it's difficult to rely on something that's submitted in a letter. And it doesn't change it that to read it orally, to read it out loud. And yes, absolutely. Both a letter would do that and oral comments will do that. I just am urging people who submitted a letter not to duplicate it with oral comments. If the letter is short and you want to read it, that can be your comment. Okay. You,
So are you saying interveners will be allowed to testify as members of the public without being it won't be testimony, therefore they will not be allowed to be crossed or anything like that?
anything in the public comment part of this hearing will not be subject to cross-examination.
Got it.
But if it's something that should have come in testimony, if it's data or information, specific information, then I'm probably not going to allow it as public comment because it should be cross-examined. But your personal experiences, your personal feelings, what you want the board to do, that's exactly what public comment is for. Yeah, yeah. No, I think you can do that because it's different than what you've done as an intervener. The well, intended to testify and nobody.
Laura, you submitted content when you intervened. And so do you have any intent to present that content? Because you need to let Art know so that it can become testimony if you do.
Anything you want to draw into cross-examine witnesses is fine, and I think everybody's been doing that. As interveners, you will be allowed, as I said in an email a week or two ago, you'll be allowed to give a closing argument, although I suspect we're going to need to limit the time. But closing argument is not your personal experiences and feelings. It's a summary of what of the evidence in this case, and what you want the board to look at Exhibit 8. You want the board to listen to the testimony of Mr. Smith, whatever. It's a summary of the evidence at the hearing. Public comment is different, and you can do both. Yes, Ms. Hansberry.
One is if we want any evidence for the board to look at, it has to be specifically introduced in this format. It doesn't matter if we sent it in earlier.
Correct, and
Thank you.
Yes.
Everybody needs to say it.
Yes.
The other thing is, Manchester has found out information that was after all of this started, the pre-hearing, and we wrote a letter. So I just want to be able to have that introduced. How do I appropriately bring in a letter and this information, seeing as it wasn't available pre-file?
Yeah, that's one thing. You'll be able to cross-examine the DPW director, Michael Hale, the Gloucester DPW director, but you have information about wells in Manchester, correct?
No, it wasn't the well. It was about the impact of flooding from a breach event of wetlands adjacent to this property.
If it's factual testimony, again, if it's factual testimony that's fairly narrow and clearly relevant to the citing criteria, then I'll let you offer it, subject to claims of prejudice by other parties.
Right.
But nobody's going to testify as an expert, which means they're not going to give their opinion on.
No, I just want the board to
If you're just saying this happened on this day over here, that's okay. It's just a fact. That's fine.
Yeah.
So you'll have a few minutes to testify on that.
Okay.
But next time, we're going to do the public comment, and then we're going to go back to traffic. We're going to do Mr. McCormick next, I think. And that'll be it on traffic.
That's correct.
Then we'll do Mr. Hale, and then the Eastern principal. Is anybody planning on any rebuttal, or hoping to do any rebuttal
No, yeah. So far,
Okay.
so good.
Okay. All right. What's that?
Mr. McCormick will be able to cover the topics that Mr. Ames would otherwise have. We only need one of the
Alright,
two of them.
alright. My goal is to finish on the 4th. So that we're going to adjourn this to Tuesday at 7:30 at the senior center, which is,
All right, I just put everything away. 1 second, please.
that's what we said last time. Let's just get the update.
Um, 1 second, apologize.
7:30 on Tuesday, the 3rd at the senior center.
It's my calendar.
And then 7:30 on Wednesday, the 4th, 7:30 to 10:30, both nights. The 4th is back here, and that will be the last night of the hearing.
Are you adjourning?
And so we are adjourned to 7:30 on Tuesday at the senior center. If anybody has a question about where that is, just be in touch with Dominique.
It's on our website.
Yep.
All of the meetings are on our website.
Thank you all.